The rebel nationalists benefited the most from foreign intervention. For example, the Germans had airlifted Franco's army from Morocco to the mainland in the first stage of the war, at a vital moment in the conflict. The Germans also committed the Condor Legion, 10,000 troops, 800 aircraft, and 200 tanks. The Italians sent 70,000 to 75,000 troops, 750 planes, and 150 tanks. The Portuguese sent 20,000 troops and permitted aid to pass over their long border with Spain. This assistance was significant in several ways. It allowed the nationalists to fight in the first place, owing to the German airlift, but German planes also gave the nationalists control of the air from 1937 on. Franco's command was not compromised, and after an Italian defeat at Guadalajara, they were taken under Spanish command. In general, the decision by foreign governments to get involved or not get involved in the Spanish Civil War was a result of both ideology and self-interest. Foreign intervention had two main effects. It both lengthened and intensified the war. It also meant that the Spanish issues that caused the war were overtaken and submerged by the wider ideological battles taking place in Europe. Britain took the lead in establishing the NIC, or Non-Intervention Pact, in September 1937. Britain's fear was that the war would spread and become a general European conflict. However, three of the key members of the NIC, Germany, Italy, and the USSR, ignored the NIC completely and became the main foreign forces in Spain. In addition, Britain's non-intervention policies were limited and tended to favor the nationalists. They focused on preventing aid going to the Republic and allowed the nationalists, but not the Republicans, to use Gibraltar as a communications base. In December 1936, they signed a trading agreement with the nationalists that permitted British companies to trade with the rebel forces. The USA also allowed American companies to trade with the nationalists, such as the Texaco Oil Company and General Motors. It would seem that Spain was sacrificed to the policy of appeasement in the same vein as Czechoslovakia. Britain wanted to avoid a general war at all costs and did not want the Civil War to damage its relations with Italy and Portugal. The French support for the Republic was inconsistent, and this reflected the complexity of its position towards the Civil War. It was not in French interests to have a right-wing regime on its border that could join with Italy and Germany to encircle France. But French politics was also polarized, and the government feared a revolt in France should it fully commit in Spain. France was also reliant on Britain, which was more anti-republic, for its foreign policy options. In the end, the French restricted themselves mainly to humanitarian assistance. The impact of the French pursuing non-intervention with Britain dealt a fatal blow to the Republic, which could have benefited greatly from the support from this large country on its border. The resulting reliance of the Republic on the Soviets polarized politics of the Spanish Civil War and associated the Republic with Soviet communism. Nevertheless, the French did not stop citizens from joining the international brigades, which were mainly organized in France. In addition, France was the main center for the coordination of Soviet aid. The USSR's reasons for supporting the Republic were not simply ideological. The Spanish conflict, in fact, presented Stalin with a dilemma. The emergence of another fascist state in Europe would strengthen Hitler's position in Europe. On the other hand, a Republic victory could panic Britain and France into alliance with Hitler against the threat of communism. Such an outcome would ruin Stalin's policy of bringing Britain and France into an alliance with the USSR to contain Hitler. Stalin was divided between these two concerns. Initially, he welcomed the NIC, but seeing that Germany and Italy were able to ignore its rules, he then went on to organize the transport of international volunteers to Spain and also weapons from Russia. He actually withdrew from the NIC in October of 1936. Although some historians have argued that Franco protracted the Spanish Civil War to enhance his own power, Stalin also had a motive for dragging the fighting out. The war would drain the resources of Germany, and the longer it went on, the more likely it was that the war to develop into a general war. This general war would then be waged on the other side of Europe, far from the borders of the USSR. Nevertheless, Stalin withdrew Soviet support in June of 1938. Not only did the Republic seem to be losing, but it now seemed that the Western democracies were set on appeasing the fascist dictators. Stalin's aim of creating a bloc to resist Hitler ended when Czechoslovakia was abandoned by Britain and France in the Munich Agreement in September of 1938. Hitler's Germany was cautious when the appeal for help came from the rebels. He was not yet ready for a general European war. Hermann Göring was important in the decision to support the rebels. Both he and Hitler wanted to stop the spread of communism, but Göring also wanted to test out his Luftwaffe in live conditions. There were economic and strategic benefits for Germany too. Raw materials such as iron ore could be gained, and deploying to Spain would give Germany the potential to hamper Anglo-French maritime communications. Hitler did not think the war would last long and only wanted to commit limited aid. Although a member of the NIC, he left in May 1937. Germany supplied the nationalists through Portugal, as well as its support of Franco in the initial stages of the war. The Condor Legion perpetrated the now infamous bombing of Guernica, and they played a pivotal role supporting the nationalists in taking Catalonia. German involvement was important to the outcome of the war, not only as it played crucial military roles at critical times during the fighting, but also as other governments were deterred from getting involved due to their presence. Italy gave the most assistance of all the foreign powers. Mussolini wanted to be involved for a number of reasons. First, involvement would be in line with his anti-communist, socialist, democratic outlook and his pro-fascist stance. Second, he wished to enhance his influence as the key power in the Mediterranean and thereby demonstrate Italy's might. Third, a fascist victory would weaken France and prevent French left-wing influence in Spain. Another fascist power would encircle France and put pressure on French colonies in North Africa. The Italians not only sent 70,000 to 75,000 troops, they contributed many planes, tanks, and weapons. Italian bombers attacked Spanish cities, and their submarines were a constant threat to supplies. Italy ignored its membership of the NIC. Historians suggest that although Italy sent many troops, the significant element of its intervention was its air and naval support, which helped the nationalists to secure victory. As a wider result, the relationship between Italy and Germany was cemented in Spain. Portugal was an important part of the foreign contribution to Franco's victory. Indeed, it was the only foreign force not compromised at any time by membership of the NIC. Not only did Portugal send 20,000 troops, but it was fundamental to supplying the rebels along the Spanish-Portuguese border and provided a base for communications. Portugal's long-term alliance with Great Britain led to the British being reluctant to counter its support for the nationalists. This was, of course, an important benefit for Franco's troops. One of the most notorious events of the Spanish Civil War was the German bombing of the defenseless Basque town of Guernica. The Condor Legion were the perpetrators of the raid, in which 1,600 people were killed. Pablo Picasso's painting Guernica is not only the iconic image of the Spanish Civil War, but has become one of the most powerful anti-war paintings in the history of art. Its powerful and terrifying image of the carnage wreaked by the bombing of civilians is recognized across the world. Indeed, its impact was considered so powerful that a copy of Guernica hanging in the UN was covered up when the war against Iraq was announced to the world press.